The bedroom door burst open. Maya's chest heaved as she ran inside, her eyes wild with terror. Her voice tore through the mansion like a siren. "Don't drink it, Mr. David. Please don't drink that tea." David's hand froze inches from the delicate china cup. His wife Sarah stood perfectly still, the silver tray trembling in her manicured hands. The sweet smile on her face cracked like broken glass. "What is the meaning of this?" Sarah hissed, her voice cold as ice. But Maya couldn't stop now. Not when she knew what was in that cup. Not when she'd watched Sarah pour white powder from a tiny bottle into the steaming tea. Not when a man's life hung in the balance. "She poisoned it, sir," Maya gasped, tears streaming down her face. "I saw everything. Please, don't drink it." The cup rattled against the saucer. Sarah's face went pale. And in that moment, David realized his perfect life had been built on lies. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to where it all began. If you're enjoying this story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Share this with someone who loves dramatic true stories. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. David Chen was a name everyone in Los Angeles knew. At 45 years old, he had built a tech empire that made him one of the wealthiest men in California. His mansion sat high in the Hollywood Hills, a sprawling estate with infinity pools, manicured gardens, and a view that stretched all the way to the Pacific Ocean. When David's black Tesla drove through the city, people turned to look. When he walked into restaurants, conversations stopped. He had everything money could buy: private jets, vacation homes in 3 countries, and a garage full of cars most people only saw in magazines. But wealth has a way of attracting danger, and sometimes that danger wears a beautiful smile. David had been married to Sarah for 10 years. She was stunning, the kind of woman who could stop traffic with a glance. Former model, fashion blogger, influencer with millions of followers. Her Instagram feed was a highlight reel of luxury. Designer dresses, exotic vacations, champagne brunches at 5-star hotels. Everyone called them the perfect couple. Magazine covers featured their anniversary photos. Entertainment shows called their love, relationship goals. From the outside, their life looked like a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't exist behind closed doors. Over the years, something had changed in Sarah. The warmth in her eyes had faded. The genuine laughter David remembered from their early days together had been replaced by forced smiles for cameras. When he came home from long days managing his companies, she barely looked up from her phone. He tried everything to win back her affection. Surprise trips to Paris. A beach house in Malibu just because she mentioned liking the sunset there once. Diamond jewelry that cost more than most people's houses. Shopping sprees with no limit. But nothing worked. Her eyes remained empty. Her heart stayed distant. She wanted more and more, but nothing was ever enough to fill whatever void existed inside her. David told himself it was just a phase. Marriages had ups and downs, right? They'd been together for a decade. They could work through anything. He loved her, and he believed that love would be enough. He had no idea that the woman sleeping beside him every night was planning his death. The change came when Sarah complained that their 20-room mansion was too much for her to manage alone. She wanted help with the cooking, the cleaning, the endless maintenance that came with such a large property. David agreed immediately. "Of course, darling. Whatever makes you happy. We'll hire someone right away." He placed an advertisement for a housekeeper. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of applicants eager to work for one of LA's wealthiest families. The pay was generous, the accommodations luxurious, the opportunity too good to pass up. Interview after interview, candidate after candidate. Some were overqualified, some underqualified. Some seemed too interested in the luxury, others too intimidated by it. Then Maya Rodriguez walked through the door. She was young, perhaps 23, with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of hard work. She wore a simple dress, Clean but clearly old, the fabric faded from many washings. When she sat down for the interview, she didn't gawk at the expensive furniture or the artwork on the walls. She looked David straight in the eye when she spoke. There was something honest about her. Something genuine that David hadn't seen in a long time. "Tell me about yourself, Maya," David said, leaning back in his leather chair. Maya took a deep breath. "I'm from a small town in New Mexico, sir. Pueblo called San Miguel. My mother is very sick. She has cancer. The treatments are expensive, and we don't have insurance that covers everything. I came to Los Angeles to find work so I can help pay for her medicine." Her voice cracked slightly when she mentioned her mother, but she held David's gaze. No tears. No dramatic pleading. Just honest need. "What experience do you have with housekeeping?" David asked. "I've been cleaning since I was old enough to hold a broom, sir. In my town, we don't have machines to do everything. We clean by hand, cook from scratch, take care of everything ourselves. I'm a hard worker. I don't complain. I just need a chance to prove myself so I can help my mother." David found himself moved by her story. There was something about Maya that reminded him of his own grandmother. The same humble dignity, the same quiet strength. "The job is yours," he said. "You can start Monday." Maya's eyes widened. She stood up quickly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. Thank you so much. I promise I won't let you down. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever hired." As Maya left the office, Sarah appeared in the doorway. She'd been watching from the hall. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together in a frown. "That one," she said dismissively. "She looks like she just came from a farm. Are you sure she's qualified?" David glanced at his wife. "She seems honest and hardworking. Sometimes that matters more than experience." Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing more. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. If David had been paying closer attention, he might have noticed the strange look in his wife's eyes. Something cold. Something calculating. But he didn't notice. He was just happy to have found someone who might bring a little genuine warmth into their increasingly cold home. Maya started work the following Monday, arriving before sunrise with a determination that impressed even the security guard at the gate. She had no idea she was walking into a house where death was already being planned. She had no idea that within a few short months, she would be the only thing standing between David Chen and a cup of poisoned tea. But some destinies are written before we ever see them coming. Maya's first morning at the Chen mansion started before the California sun painted the sky pink. She stood at the security gate at 5:30 a.m., her small backpack containing everything she owned in the world, 2 changes of clothes, a photograph of her mother, and a rosary her grandmother had given her before she died. The guard, a friendly man named Marcus, smiled at her. "You're the new housekeeper? Mr. Chen said you'd be starting today. You're early." "I didn't want to be late," Maya said simply. Marcus chuckled. "Something tells me you're going to work out just fine here. Come on, I'll let you in." The gate swung open slowly, and Maya walked up the long driveway. In the early morning light, the mansion looked like something from a movie. All glass and white stone, with palm trees swaying gently in the breeze. Water fountains trickled peacefully in the garden. The infinity pool reflected the slowly brightening sky. Maya had never seen such wealth in her entire life. In San Miguel, her whole neighborhood could have fit inside this house. 10 families lived in homes smaller than David's garage. But Maya didn't feel jealous. She felt grateful. This job was her mother's lifeline. Every paycheck would go toward the chemotherapy treatments that kept her mother alive. Every week of work was another week of hope. The first few days were challenging. Maya had to learn how to use appliances she'd never seen before. A smart refrigerator that could order groceries by itself, a washing machine with more settings than a spaceship, a vacuum cleaner that cost more than her family's car. In San Miguel, they washed clothes by hand in the river. They swept dirt floors with bundles of dried grass. They cooked over open fires. Everything here was different, electric, automated, complicated. But Maya was smart. She watched instructional videos on her phone. She asked questions. She paid attention to every detail. Within a week, she knew how to operate everything perfectly. More importantly, she worked harder than anyone David had ever hired. She arrived early and stayed late. She cleaned every room until it sparkled. She learned to cook dishes she'd never heard of before by watching cooking shows and reading recipes online. David noticed immediately. "Maya, this is excellent work," he told her one evening, looking at the spotless kitchen. "The house hasn't looked this good in years." Maya smiled shyly. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I'm just doing my best." But Sarah didn't share David's appreciation. From the very first day, she watched Maya with suspicious eyes. She didn't like how humble the girl was. She didn't like how hard she worked. She especially didn't like how David praised Maya's cooking, saying it reminded him of his grandmother's food. Sarah began testing Maya in small, cruel ways. She would inspect the same room 3 times, finding fault with invisible dust. She would criticize meals that were perfectly prepared. She would change instructions at the last minute and then act angry when Maya followed the original orders. "This chicken is too dry," Sarah would complain, even when it was perfectly moist. "You missed a spot," she would say, pointing at an already spotless floor. "Why is this taking you so long?" she would demand, even when Maya was working as fast as humanly possible. When David was around, Sarah was all sweetness and smiles. But the moment his car pulled out of the driveway, her mask would slip. Her voice would turn sharp. Her eyes would turn cold. Maya never complained. Not once. She simply worked harder, stayed quieter, and remained respectful no matter how Sarah treated her. She needed this job too desperately to risk losing it over wounded pride. At night, in the small room off the kitchen where she slept, Maya would call her mother in San Miguel. The connection was often bad, cutting in and out, but just hearing her mother's voice made everything worthwhile. "How are you feeling, Mama?" Maya would ask. "Better, Mija," her mother would say, though Maya could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "The treatments are helping. The doctor says my numbers are improving. It's all because of you, Maya. You're saving my life." Those words made every cruel comment from Sarah bearable. Every difficult day worth it. Maya wasn't working just for herself. She was working for the most important person in her world. 3 months passed this way. Maya settled into a routine. Wake at 5, clean the mansion, prepare meals, do laundry, tend the garden, handle any special requests. She worked 7 days a week with only Sunday afternoons off, but she didn't mind. The overtime pay went straight to her mother's medical bills. David was increasingly impressed with Maya's work ethic and character. She was nothing like the entitled people who usually surrounded him in Los Angeles. She was genuine, humble, and kind. Sometimes he would find himself talking to her while she worked, asking about her life, her mother, her small town. These conversations made Sarah even more hostile toward Maya, though David didn't notice the jealousy simmering beneath his wife's perfect surface. Then, everything changed the day a man named Ryan started visiting the mansion. It was a Tuesday afternoon. David had left for a business meeting downtown. Maya was vacuuming the upstairs hallway when she heard the doorbell ring. Through the window, she saw a silver Porsche in the driveway, a car she'd never seen before. Sarah rushed to answer the door herself, which was unusual. She always made Maya answer the door. Through the railing, Maya watched Sarah greet the visitor. He was tall and handsome, probably in his mid-30s, wearing an expensive suit. But what caught Maya's attention wasn't his appearance. It was the way Sarah looked at him. Her whole face transformed. The cold mask she usually wore melted away. Her eyes sparkled. Her smile became genuine. She touched his arm in a way that made Maya's stomach turn. "Maya!" Sarah called up the stairs. "Come down here." Maya turned off the vacuum and descended the stairs, keeping her eyes respectfully lowered. "This is my cousin Ryan," Sarah said, her voice honey-sweet. He's visiting from San Francisco for a few days. Make sure you prepare the guest room for him. Yes, ma'am, Maya said quietly. But as she returned upstairs to prepare the room, her mind was troubled. Something felt wrong. Cousins didn't look at each other the way Sarah and Ryan had looked at each other. Their eyes held secrets. Their smiles were too intimate. The way they stood too close together. Maya tried to push the thoughts away. It wasn't her business. She was just the housekeeper. What the family did was their own concern. But over the following weeks, Ryan's visits became more frequent. Once a week became twice a week became almost daily. He always arrived shortly after David left for work and always stayed for hours. Sometimes Maya would hear them laughing in the living room. Sometimes they would lock themselves in the study. Once she walked past Sarah's bedroom door and heard voices inside, voices that had no business being there in the middle of the afternoon. Maya's discomfort grew, but she remained silent. Speaking up could cost her the job. And losing this job meant losing her mother's chance at survival. She tried to ignore what was happening. She focused on her work, kept her head down, and minded her own business. But some secrets are too dangerous to ignore. Some silences become complicity. And Maya was about to discover that staying quiet in the face of evil can make you part of that evil. The day was coming when she would have to choose between her job and her conscience. Between safety and doing what was right. That day was closer than she thought. The summer heat settled over Los Angeles like a blanket. Inside the Chen mansion, the air conditioning kept everything cool, but Maya felt a different kind of chill, the cold sensation that comes from knowing something terrible but not knowing what to do about it. Ryan's visits had become a pattern. Every morning after David left, the silver Porsche would appear. Every evening before David returned home, Ryan would disappear. The routine was so precise it seemed choreographed. Maya tried to maintain her normal schedule, but it was becoming impossible to ignore what was happening. She would clean rooms only to find them locked. She would prepare lunch only to have Sarah dismiss her for the afternoon. The mansion that once felt open now had closed doors and whispered conversations. One afternoon, Maya was dusting the bookshelves in the study when she heard voices approaching. She quickly moved to leave, but the door opened before she could reach it. Sarah and Ryan walked in, so absorbed in their conversation they didn't notice her standing in the corner behind a large armchair. When are you going to leave him? Ryan's voice was low but intense. Sarah sighed dramatically. It's not that simple, Ryan. You know that. If I just divorce him, I get nothing. The prenup was ironclad. David's lawyers made sure of that. 10 years of marriage, and I'd walk away with basically nothing. So what's the alternative? Ryan asked. We can't keep living like this, sneaking around like teenagers. I want to be with you openly. I want us to have a life together. There was a long pause. Maya held her breath, pressing herself against the wall, praying they wouldn't discover her. There might be another way, Sarah said slowly. A way where I get everything. Where David is out of the picture completely. Where all his wealth becomes mine. And ours. Maya's heart began to pound so hard she was certain they would hear it. What are you saying, Sarah? Ryan's voice dropped even lower. I'm saying that sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes people have heart attacks. Sometimes wealthy men die suddenly, and their widows inherit everything. The words hung in the air like poison. Maya felt sick. Were they really talking about what she thought they were talking about? That's dangerous talk, Ryan said, though his tone suggested interest rather than rejection. Very dangerous. Is it? Or is it just practical? Think about it, Ryan. David has a stressful job. He works long hours. He's 45. A heart attack wouldn't be surprising. It would be tragic, yes, but not suspicious. And how would this accident happen? Ryan asked. Sarah's voice became even quieter. I've been doing research. There are ways. Clean ways. Untraceable ways. We just need to be smart about it. Maya's legs felt weak. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. They were planning to murder David. Her employer, the kind man who had given her this job, who had trusted her in his home. They wanted him dead. She must have made a sound, some small gasp or movement, because suddenly Sarah's voice cut through the room. Did you hear something? Maya's blood turned to ice. She stood perfectly still, not even breathing. Footsteps approached the bookshelf where she was hidden. Maya closed her eyes, preparing to be discovered. If they found her now, having overheard their conversation, what would they do? Would they hurt her too? But just then, Sarah's phone rang. The loud ringtone broke the tension. It's David, Sarah said with irritation. I have to take this. She answered with her sweetest voice. Hello, darling. How's your day going? Maya heard them walk out of the study, and she finally allowed herself to breathe. Her whole body was shaking. She waited several minutes before carefully leaving the room herself. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. What should she do? If she went to David with this story, would he believe her? She was just the housekeeper. Sarah was his wife of 10 years. Why would he trust Maya's word over his wife's? And what if Sarah and Ryan denied everything? What if they said Maya was lying, trying to cause trouble? She would lose her job immediately. She would be thrown out with no reference, no money, and no way to help her mother. But if she said nothing and David died, could she live with that guilt? Could she stand by and let a good man be murdered? Maya picked up her phone and looked at the photo of her mother. Her mother had always taught her to do the right thing, no matter the cost. Silence in the face of evil makes you part of the evil, Mija, she had said many times. But doing the right thing might mean sacrificing everything Maya had worked for. It might mean losing the income that was keeping her mother alive. The weight of that choice pressed down on her like a physical force. The next morning, Maya decided she would watch carefully. She would gather more information before making any decisions. Maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe they were just talking hypothetically. Maybe she was overreacting. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had heard it in Sarah's voice, cold calculation mixed with determination. This wasn't idle fantasy. This was a plan taking shape. Over the following days, Maya became a shadow in the house. She moved quietly, paid attention to everything, and watched Sarah's every move. She noticed Sarah had become intensely interested in David's schedule, asking about his meetings, his travel plans, when he would be home. David seemed pleased by this sudden attention. Sarah's been so sweet lately, he mentioned to Maya one morning. She's asking about my day, making an effort. Maybe things are finally improving between us. Maya forced a smile, but inside her heart broke. David had no idea that his wife's interest wasn't about rekindling their marriage. It was about finding the perfect moment to end his life. 1 week later, Maya was in the garden trimming roses when she heard Sarah on the phone. Sarah was walking along the far edge of the pool, thinking she was alone. I found it, Sarah said into her phone, her voice excited. The perfect thing. Completely undetectable. No taste, no smell, no color. It causes cardiac arrest that looks completely natural. The doctor said it will seem like a heart attack. No autopsy would find anything unusual. Maya's pruning shears fell from her hands, clattering on the stone path. Sarah spun around. Is someone there? Maya quickly bent down, grabbing the shears, her heart hammering. Sorry, Mrs. Chen. I dropped my scissors. Just clumsy me. Sarah's eyes narrowed suspiciously, studying Maya for a long moment. How long have you been out here? I just came out, ma'am. I'm trimming the roses like you asked. Sarah stared at her for several more seconds, then turned and walked back into the house, still talking quietly into her phone. Maya's hands were shaking so badly she had to sit down on the garden bench. This was no longer speculation or overheard conversation that might have been misunderstood. Sarah had obtained something, some substance that could kill David and make it look natural. Time was running out. Maya had to make a decision. Tell David and risk everything, or stay silent and become complicit in murder. That evening, Maya knelt beside her bed and prayed harder than she ever had in her life. God, please show me what to do. Please give me strength. Please protect Mr. David. Please guide me. But before she could decide on her course of action, events would move faster than anyone expected. The plan Sarah and Ryan had been crafting was about to be put into motion. And Maya would have only seconds to choose between her safety and David's life. Friday afternoon arrived with unexpected developments. David came home from work earlier than usual, his face drawn with stress. Maya was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard his car in the driveway, 2 hours earlier than normal. He walked through the door looking exhausted, loosening his tie with one hand while rubbing his temple with the other. "Mr. Chen, you're home early," Maya said with concern. "Are you all right?" David sank into one of the kitchen chairs. "Terrible day, Maya. The biggest deal I've been working on for 6 months just fell through. We lost everything, millions of dollars, hundreds of jobs. I need to figure out how to salvage this, but my head is pounding. I think I just need to lie down for a while." Sarah appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "David, darling, you look awful. Why don't you go rest? I'll take care of everything." David nodded wearily. "I think I will. Wake me for dinner." He headed upstairs to their bedroom, his footsteps heavy with exhaustion. The moment his bedroom door closed, Sarah's demeanor changed entirely. Her eyes became sharp and alert. She immediately pulled out her phone and typed something, then turned to Maya. "Maya, go upstairs and clean the guest bathrooms. All of them. And take your time, I want them spotless." Something in Sarah's voice made Maya's skin prickle. The tone was wrong. Too sweet, too insistent. "Yes, ma'am," Maya said quietly, but instead of going to the guest wing, she crept to the top of the stairs where she could see down into the kitchen. What she witnessed next confirmed her worst fears. Sarah went to the stove and filled a kettle with water. She pulled out David's favorite mug, a blue ceramic cup his mother had given him years ago. She prepared tea with methodical precision. Hot water, tea bag, sugar, a splash of milk, exactly how David liked it. Then Sarah walked to her designer handbag on the counter. She glanced around the kitchen one more time, checking that she was alone. Satisfied, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small glass bottle, no bigger than her thumb, with a white cap. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Sarah held the bottle up to the light, examining it with an expression that made Maya's blood run cold. It was a look of satisfaction mixed with determination. She unscrewed the cap carefully. Inside was white powder, crystalline, almost like sugar or salt. Sarah tilted the bottle over David's mug. The powder poured out in a thin stream, disappearing into the hot tea. She tapped the bottle to make sure she'd emptied almost all of it, then stirred the tea slowly, deliberately, watching the powder dissolve completely. She lifted the mug to her nose and smelled it. A small smile crossed her face. Then she carefully placed the bottle back in her purse and arranged everything on a small silver tray with a napkin. Maya's entire body was frozen with horror. She had just watched David's wife poison his tea. There was no more doubt, no more wondering if she'd misunderstood. This was murder in progress. Sarah picked up the tray and started walking toward the stairs, toward the bedroom where David lay resting and unsuspecting. Maya's mind screamed at her to move, to do something, but fear paralyzed her. If she confronted Sarah now, the woman would just deny everything. She could dump the tea, make a fresh cup, and Maya would have no proof. Sarah would fire her immediately, and worse, she would simply try again another day when Maya wasn't there to stop her. But if Maya went to David's room first, Sarah would follow right behind her with the poisoned tea. There was only one option. Maya had to catch Sarah in the act, in front of David, with the evidence clear for everyone to see. Only then would he believe what was happening. Only then would he be safe. Sarah's heels clicked on the marble stairs. Click, click, click. Each step bringing the poison closer to its target. Maya moved silently behind her, staying just out of sight. Sarah reached the bedroom door. She balanced the tray on one hand and knocked gently. David. Darling. I brought you some tea. It'll help with your headache. Come in, David's tired voice called from inside. Sarah pushed the door open with her shoulder and stepped into the room. Maya waited 1 second, 2 seconds, giving Sarah just enough time to enter completely. David was sitting up in bed, his back against the headboard, his eyes closed. He looked so vulnerable, so trusting. Sarah walked slowly toward the bed, that sweet false smile on her face. Here you go, my love, Sarah said softly. This will make you feel better. Just drink it all down. Nice and warm. It'll help you relax. David opened his eyes and smiled weakly at his wife. Thank you, Sarah. You're thoughtful. He reached out his hand toward the cup. His fingers were inches away from the handle. Sarah held the tray steady, the poison tea right there, ready to be drunk. In just moments, the poison would be in David's body. In an hour, he would be feeling sick. In 2 hours, he would be dying. By tomorrow, he would be gone forever. This was the moment. There were no more seconds to waste. Maya burst through the door. Her sudden entrance was so violent that both David and Sarah jumped. The tray rattled in Sarah's hands. The tea sloshed dangerously close to the rim of the cup. Don't drink it, Mr. David. Maya's voice came out as a scream, louder and more desperate than she'd ever heard herself sound. Please don't drink that tea. Don't drink it, sir. Please. The words echoed through the bedroom, through the hallway, through the entire mansion. David's hand froze in mid-air. He pulled it back quickly, his face showing complete confusion. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Sarah's face transformed in an instant. The sweet mask shattered. Her eyes became hard and cold, filled with rage. The tray shook violently in her hands. What is the meaning of this? Sarah's voice came out like a snake's hiss. How dare you burst in here like a crazy person? Have you lost your mind completely? This is unacceptable. I'll have you fired immediately. Get out. Get out. But Maya couldn't stop now. She'd crossed the line. There was no going back. Either she saved David's life and lost everything, or she stayed quiet and became a murderer herself. The choice had been made the moment she screamed. Maya's whole body was shaking, but she locked eyes with David. Mr. Chen, please, sir. Listen to me. Your wife put something in that tea. I watched her. I saw everything. She went to the kitchen and made your tea, and then she took a small bottle from her purse, a glass bottle with white powder inside. She poured it into your cup. All of it. She stirred it until it dissolved. Please, sir. Please believe me. That tea is poisoned. The room fell completely silent. So silent that Maya could hear her own heartbeat. Could hear Sarah's rapid breathing. Could hear David's sharp intake of breath as the words registered. David's eyes moved slowly from Maya to the cup of tea, then to his wife's face. And in that moment, everything changed forever. The silence in the bedroom was suffocating. 3 people stood frozen in a moment that would determine life or death. David's eyes moved between Maya, trembling but resolute, and Sarah, whose face had gone from rage to something else entirely. Panic. Fear. Guilt. This is absolutely ridiculous. Sarah's voice pitched higher, defensive and sharp. Kofi, this girl has lost her mind. She's jealous of me, can't you see? She's been giving you looks when I'm not around, trying to come between us. This is her way of destroying our marriage. She wants you for herself. But David was no longer looking at Sarah. He was studying her face with the same analytical intensity he used in business negotiations, the skill that had made him a billionaire. He was reading micro-expressions, body language, the small tells that people display when they're lying. Sarah's hands trembled as she held the tray. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the air conditioning. Her tongue darted out to wet her lips, a classic sign of nervousness. Her eyes couldn't hold his gaze for more than a second before looking away. These were not the reactions of an innocent woman wrongly accused. David stood slowly from the bed. His headache seemed forgotten now. His exhaustion had been replaced by cold alertness. "Give me the cup, Sarah." His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. It wasn't a request. Sarah took a step backward, clutching the tray to her chest. "No. This is insane. I'm your wife, David. Your wife. We've been married for 10 years. How can you believe some housekeeper you've known for 3 months over me? How can you doubt me like this? I'm hurt. I'm really hurt by this. The cup, Sarah. Now." David's voice grew harder. Sarah's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal searching for escape. But there was nowhere to go. David blocked the door. Maya stood near the window. And the truth was closing in from all sides. "Maya," David said without taking his eyes off his wife. "You said you saw Sarah take a bottle from her purse. A glass bottle with white powder." "Yes, sir," Maya said, her voice shaking but clear. "A small bottle with a white cap. She poured almost all of the powder into your tea and then put the bottle back in her handbag. It's still there, sir. If you check her purse, you'll find it." David's gaze shifted to Sarah's designer handbag, a cream-colored Chanel worth thousands of dollars, sitting on the dresser near the door. "No," Sarah whispered. "You can't go through my personal things. That's an invasion of privacy. You have no right, David. You're my husband. You should trust me. You should believe me." But David was already moving toward the handbag. Sarah lunged forward, trying to grab it first, but David was faster. He snatched the bag and held it away from her reaching hands. "David, please." Sarah's voice cracked. Tears started streaming down her face. Real tears this time, tears of desperation and fear. "Please don't do this. You don't understand. I can explain everything. Just put the bag down and let's talk. Please. David. Please." But David had already opened the bag. His hand went inside, searching. His fingers closed around something small and hard. When he pulled his hand out, he was holding a small glass bottle with a white cap. Inside, clearly visible, was white crystalline powder. David held the bottle up to the light, examining it. His hand was remarkably steady, but his face had gone completely pale. "What is this, Sarah?" His voice was quiet now. Dangerously quiet. Sarah's legs seemed to give out. She sank to her knees on the plush bedroom carpet, her expensive dress pooling around her. She grabbed at David's legs, her perfectly manicured nails clutching at his pants. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry, David. I don't know what came over me. I wasn't thinking clearly. Please forgive me. Please. Think of our 10 years together. Think of everything we've been through. I made a terrible mistake. A horrible mistake. Please have mercy. Please don't call the police. Please, David, please." The confession was complete. The truth was out. Maya felt her knees go weak with relief and horror. She had been right. Sarah had really been trying to kill David. And if Maya hadn't found the courage to speak up, David would be drinking that poison right now. David pulled away from Sarah's grasp. He stepped back, looking at the woman he'd been married to for a decade as if seeing a stranger. 10 years, he said softly. 10 years I loved you. 10 years I gave you everything you wanted. Every luxury. Every comfort. I trusted you with my life, Sarah. And this. He held up the bottle. This is how you repay that trust? By trying to murder me. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Sarah whispered, her voice broken. I couldn't. Why? David's voice cracked with emotion. The pain of betrayal was worse than any poison. Just tell me why. What did I do to deserve this? Was I not a good husband? Did I not provide well? What was so terrible about your life that you wanted me dead? Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the answer was greed, pure and simple. She'd had everything and still wanted more. David pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking now as the shock began to set in. I'm calling Dr. Harrison. He needs to test this immediately. I need to know exactly what you put in that tea. He dialed his personal physician, a man who had been his doctor for 15 years. Dr. Harrison lived only 10 minutes away in Beverly Hills. Michael, it's David Chen. I need you to come to my house immediately. It's an emergency. I need you to test something, a substance that may be poison. Yes, I'm serious. Please hurry. While they waited for the doctor, David also called his lawyer, James Morrison. James, I need you at my house right away. Something serious has happened. Very serious. I'll explain when you get here. Sarah remained on the floor, crying, but her tears found no sympathy. She had shown no mercy when planning to poison her husband. Why should anyone show her mercy now? Maya stood quietly in the corner, still trembling from the adrenaline. She had done it. She had saved David's life. But at what cost? Her job was certainly over. Sarah would make sure she never worked in Los Angeles again. And without this income, how would she pay for her mother's treatments? But even knowing all that, Maya felt no regret. She had done the right thing. Some things mattered more than money or security. David must have seen something in Maya's expression because he turned to her. Sit down, Maya, he said gently. You've been standing this whole time. You just saved my life. The least I can do is make sure you're comfortable. Maya shook her head. I'm okay, Mr. Chen. I'm just glad I spoke up in time. If you hadn't. David's voice trailed off. He couldn't finish the sentence. The reality was too horrifying. Dr. Harrison arrived within 12 minutes, carrying his medical bag and looking worried. He was a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. David, what's going on? He asked as he entered the bedroom. David handed him the teacup and the small bottle. I need you to test these immediately. Tell me what's in them. Especially that powder in the bottle. Dr. Harrison's expression grew grave as he examined the items. He opened his medical bag and pulled out several testing vials and strips. He worked quickly and methodically, taking samples, running preliminary tests right there in the bedroom. The room was silent except for the sound of Dr. Harrison's work. Sarah had stopped crying and now sat slumped against the wall, defeated. After about 15 minutes, Dr. Harrison looked up. His face was ashen. David, he said quietly, this is cyanide. Potassium cyanide, to be specific. It's one of the deadliest poisons known to man. Even a small amount can be lethal. He held up the bottle. There's enough here to kill several people. And according to my tests, a significant amount was dissolved in this tea. Dr. Harrison turned to look at David with deep concern. If you had drunk this entire cup, you would have died within 1 to 2 hours. First, severe dizziness and nausea. Then intense stomach pain. Your heart would have begun beating irregularly. Difficulty breathing. Loss of consciousness. Then death. He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. To someone who didn't know better, it would have looked like a massive heart attack. A tragic but natural death. The perfect murder. If not for your housekeeper's intervention. The room fell silent again. The full horror of what had almost happened settled over everyone like a dark cloud. Sarah had almost succeeded. She had been minutes away from making herself a wealthy widow. Minutes away from freedom and all of David's billions. James Morrison, David's lawyer, arrived shortly after. He was a sharp man in his 50s who had handled all of David's legal affairs for years. When he heard the story and saw the evidence, His face hardened. David, this is attempted murder. This is conspiracy to commit murder. This is one of the most serious crimes imaginable. We need to call the police immediately. This cannot be handled privately. David nodded slowly. He looked at his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, one last time. You're right. Call them. Sarah's eyes went wide with terror. No. David, please. Don't do this. Think about the scandal. Think about your reputation. Think about you. David's voice rose for the first time. You wanted me dead, Sarah. You obtained poison. You planned this. You put it in my tea. You were going to watch me die. And you want me to think about protecting you now. He shook his head, disgusted. No. You made your choice. Now you face the consequences. James pulled out his phone and dialed 911. This is James Morrison calling from the David Chen residence in the Hollywood Hills. We need police immediately. We have evidence of attempted murder. Yes, I'm serious. Please send officers right away. While they waited for the police, David turned his attention to Maya. She was still standing near the window, looking small and frightened. Come here, Maya, David said softly. Maya approached hesitantly. You saved my life today, David said, his voice thick with emotion. You risked your job, your income, everything, to do what was right. That kind of courage is rare. That kind of integrity is precious. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes. I couldn't let you die, Mr. Chen. My mother always taught me that silence in the face of evil makes you part of that evil. I couldn't be silent. Even if it cost me everything. David's eyes also filled with tears. Your mother raised an extraordinary daughter. And I promise you this, you will never regret doing the right thing. Not while I'm alive to ensure it. The police arrived within 20 minutes. 3 officers led by Detective Martinez, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been with the LAPD for 20 years and had seen every kind of crime imaginable. But even she looked surprised when she heard the details of this case. David explained everything from the beginning. Maya provided her eyewitness testimony, describing in detail what she'd seen Sarah do in the kitchen. Dr. Harrison presented his test results, confirming the presence of deadly cyanide in both the tea and the bottle. Detective Martinez examined all the evidence carefully. She took photographs, collected samples, and made detailed notes. She spoke with each witness separately to ensure their stories matched. When she finally turned to Sarah, who was still sitting on the floor looking defeated, her voice was firm and professional. Mrs. Chin, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder of your husband, David Chen. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights? Sarah nodded weakly, unable to speak. 2 officers lifted her from the floor and placed handcuffs on her wrists. The metallic click of the cuffs closing was final, absolute. Sarah's designer bracelets, worth thousands of dollars, jangled against the cheap metal handcuffs. The contrast was stark. A woman who'd had everything, brought down by her own greed and evil intentions. As the officers began to lead Sarah out of the bedroom, she stopped and turned to look at David one last time. Her face was streaked with tears and mascara. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm truly sorry, David. You deserved better than this. You were always good to me, and I repaid you with evil. I was blinded by greed and other things. I lost my way. I hope someday you can forgive me. David's face showed no emotion. The person I loved, or thought I loved, would never have done this. I don't know who you are, Sarah. I don't think I ever did. Sarah lowered her head and allowed the officers to lead her away. Her expensive heels clicked on the marble floor one last time, but now it was the sound of a criminal being taken into custody, not a wealthy socialite walking through her mansion. As they reached the front door, Detective Martinez turned back to David. Mr. Chin, there's something else you mentioned. Sarah's lover, Ryan. Do you have any information about him? David's jaw clenched. In the chaos, he'd almost forgotten about Ryan. Yes. She's been having an affair. The man visits almost daily when I'm at work. I don't know his full name or address, but Sarah does. Detective Martinez looked at Sarah. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. Give us his information now, and it'll count as cooperation. Make us hunt for him, and it'll just add to your charges. Sarah stood silent for a long moment, then finally spoke. Ryan Parker. He lives in the Marina del Rey Towers, apartment 307. She gave them his full address and phone number. Even now, part of her seemed reluctant to give up her lover, but survival instinct had kicked in. Detective Martinez immediately radioed for backup units. This is Detective Martinez. Requesting immediate assistance at Marina del Rey Towers, apartment 307. Suspect is Ryan Parker, male, mid-30s. He's wanted in connection with a murder conspiracy. Approach with caution. Suspect may attempt to flee. The radio crackled back with confirmation. Units en route. ETA 5 minutes. Detective Martinez looked at Sarah with something like contempt. For what it's worth, Mrs. Chin, you could have had everything. Instead, you're going to prison for a very long time. The officers took Sarah to the waiting patrol car. Neighbors had come out of their houses, drawn by the commotion. Cameras flashed. People whispered and pointed. By tomorrow, this story would be all over the news. Back inside the mansion, David sank into a chair. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the full weight of what had happened was settling on him. His wife had tried to kill him. His marriage of 10 years had been a lie. He'd been minutes away from death. Dr. Harrison placed a hand on his shoulder. David, you're in shock. That's completely normal. I'm going to give you something to help you stay calm, and I want you to consider spending the night somewhere else. Maybe a hotel, or a friend's house. This place is going to be a crime scene for a while. James Morrison agreed. The police will need to collect more evidence. They'll want to search the entire house, check Sarah's computer and phone records, document everything. It's going to be a long night. David nodded numbly. Then he looked at Maya, who was still standing quietly in the corner. Maya, come sit down. Maya shook her head. I should go, Mr. Chen. I should pack my things and... Pack your things. David looked confused. Why would you pack your things? I assumed I'd be fired. After everything that happened. After I interrupted and... David stood up quickly. Fired. Maya, you saved my life. You risked everything to tell me the truth. You showed more loyalty and courage than anyone I've ever known. Fire you. I want to give you a medal. He walked over to her and took her hands in his. Maya, I owe you a debt I can never repay. You could have stayed silent. You could have protected your job and your income. But you chose to do what was right, even though it might have cost you everything. That's true character. That's real integrity. Tears rolled down Maya's cheeks. I just did what my mother taught me, Mr. Chen. She always said that good people must stand against evil, no matter the cost. Your mother is a wise woman, David said softly. And she raised an incredible daughter. He paused, thinking. Maya, I know you came to Los Angeles to help pay for your mother's medical treatments. How much does she need? Maya looked uncomfortable. Mr. Chin, I don't want charity. I just want to work. It's not charity. It's a debt. How much? Maya hesitated, then whispered. The full course of treatment is about $250,000. The insurance covers some, but we still owe about $180,000. That's why I needed this job so badly. David pulled out his phone immediately. James, I need you to arrange a wire transfer. $250,000 to. He looked at Maya. What's your mother's name? Maria Rodriguez, Maya said, shocked. But Mr. Chen, I can't accept. You're not accepting charity. You're accepting payment for saving my life. What's that worth, Maya? What's the price of a human life? Especially when that life was saved through pure courage and integrity. He turned back to his lawyer. Make it $300,000. Make sure all her mother's medical bills are paid in full, with extra to cover any future care she might need. Maya's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the chair, overwhelmed. $300,000? Mr. Chin, that's too much. That's more than I'd make in years. It's not enough, David said firmly. It's not nearly enough. But it's a start. James Morrison was already typing on his phone. I'll have the funds transferred first thing tomorrow morning. Maya couldn't speak. She just sat there crying, tears of relief, gratitude, and overwhelming emotion. Her mother would be saved. After all the fear, all the worry, all the desperate work, her mother would live. Detective Martinez returned from processing Sarah. Mr. Chen, I need to inform you that we've arrested Ryan Parker. He attempted to flee when officers arrived, but they apprehended him in the parking garage. When they searched his apartment, they found text messages between him and your wife. Messages discussing the poisoning, planning your death, talking about splitting your assets after you were gone. She shook her head. It's all there in writing. They were sloppy. They thought they were smart, but they left a clear digital trail. Both of them are facing first-degree murder conspiracy charges. David felt sick. His wife and her lover had planned his death in detail, celebrating his future murder via text message. The betrayal ran even deeper than he'd imagined. How long will they go to prison? He asked quietly. With this evidence. 25 years to life. Maybe more. Attempted murder with premeditation, conspiracy, possession of illegal substances with intent to harm. The DA is going to throw the book at them. Detective Martinez paused. Mr. Chen, I have to ask. Did you notice anything strange in the weeks leading up to this? Any warning signs? David thought back. Sarah had been asking about my schedule more than usual. Asking when I'd be traveling, when I'd be home, what meetings I had. I thought she was finally taking interest in my life. I was actually happy about it. She was planning the timing, Detective Martinez said. Looking for the perfect moment when you'd be vulnerable. Today was probably chosen because you came home early, stressed, with a headache. Perfect victim profile for a heart attack. The cold calculation behind it all made David feel even sicker. Over the next few hours, the mansion filled with police technicians and investigators. They photographed everything, collected evidence, searched Sarah's belongings. They found more incriminating evidence, searches on Sarah's laptop about untraceable poisons, messages with Ryan about the plan, even a draft email to a divorce attorney that she'd never sent, probably because she decided murder was more profitable. By midnight, the police had collected everything they needed. Detective Martinez approached David one final time. Mr. Chin, you're an incredibly lucky man. If your housekeeper hadn't had the courage to speak up, you'd be dead right now. That young woman saved your life. She looked at Maya with respect. Miss Rodriguez, what you did took extraordinary courage. Most people would have looked the other way, protected their job, their income. But you put someone else's life above your own security. The LAPD would like to present you with a civilian commendation for your bravery. Maya looked overwhelmed. I don't need any awards. I just did what was right. That's exactly why you deserve recognition, Detective Martinez said with a smile. Because you think what you did was just basic human decency. Most people wouldn't have done it. You're special, Miss Rodriguez. Don't ever forget that. 3 months had passed since that terrifying day in David's bedroom. The story had exploded across every media outlet in America. Billionaire's wife arrested for attempted murder, the headlines screamed. Housekeeper's bravery saves tech mogul's life. Maya's face was everywhere, on TV, in newspapers, across social media. She'd become an overnight sensation, though she hated the attention. Interview requests flooded in from major networks. Book publishers offered six-figure deals. A Hollywood studio wanted to make a movie about her story. But Maya turned them all down. She didn't want fame or fortune beyond what David had already given her. She just wanted privacy and the chance to be with her mother. True to his word, David had wired $300,000 to Maya's family the morning after Sarah's arrest. Maya's mother was able to complete her cancer treatment at the best hospital in New Mexico. The doctors were optimistic. The cancer was in remission. Maria Rodriguez was going to survive. Maya had cried for an hour when she got that news. All the fear, all the sleepless nights worrying about her mother, it was finally over. And it was all because she'd found the courage to speak up when it mattered most. David had also insisted that Maya continue working for him, if she wanted to. "You've more than earned the right to quit and do whatever you want," he told her. "But if you'd like to stay, I'd be honored to have you. And we'll quintuple your salary." Maya had stayed. Not for the money, though the salary was more than generous. She stayed because David had become like family to her. He was a good man who'd been betrayed in the worst possible way, and she wanted to help him heal. David had filed for divorce immediately. With Sarah facing attempted murder charges, the prenuptial agreement was void. She would get absolutely nothing from him. No money, no property, no assets. Everything remained David's. The divorce was finalized within 2 months. David Chen was single again, sadder but wiser about whom to trust. Now, the day of the trial had arrived. The Los Angeles Superior Court was packed. Media crews lined the hallway. Reporters jostled for position. Court sketch artists prepared their materials. This was the biggest trial of the year, possibly the decade. Inside courtroom 7, Maya sat in the front row of the gallery. She was dressed simply in a navy blue dress that David had bought for her. She'd never testified in court before, and she was nervous. David sat beside her, offering quiet reassurance. "You're going to do great," he whispered. "Just tell the truth. That's all you need to do." James Morrison, who was serving as a witness for the prosecution, sat on David's other side. Dr. Harrison was also present, ready to testify about the cyanide. The prosecution team was led by District Attorney Catherine Walsh, a formidable woman known for her perfect record in murder trials. She'd reviewed the evidence against Sarah and Ryan and called it the most clear-cut attempted murder case she'd ever seen. The defense attorneys looked considerably less confident. Everyone stood as Judge Robert Thompson entered. He was a stern man in his 60s, known for being tough but fair. "Please be seated," Judge Thompson said. "We are here for the trial of Sarah Chan and Ryan Parker, both charged with conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder in the first degree, and possession of illegal substances with intent to harm. How do the defendants plead?" Sarah's attorney, a nervous young man clearly out of his depth, stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Ryan's attorney, an older woman with a grim expression, also stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Judge Thompson nodded. "Very well. District Attorney Walsh, you may present your opening statement." Catherine Walsh stood and walked to the center of the courtroom. She was a commanding presence, confident, articulate, and clearly prepared. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began. "This is a case about greed, betrayal, and cold-blooded planning. The evidence will show that Sarah Chan and Ryan Parker conspired to murder David Chen so they could inherit his vast fortune and be together without obstacle." She walked slowly along the jury box, making eye contact with each juror. "The evidence will show that Sarah Chan obtained potassium cyanide, one of the deadliest poisons known to man. That she researched how to commit the perfect murder. That she and her lover, Ryan Parker, exchanged messages planning every detail of David Chen's death." Walsh paused for emphasis. And the evidence will show that Sarah Chen put that poison in her husband's tea, fully intending for him to drink it and die. She would have succeeded. David Chen would be dead today, if not for the extraordinary courage of a young housekeeper named Maya Rodriguez, who risked everything to speak the truth. The jury was already leaning forward, captivated. Over the next few days, you will hear testimony from Maya Rodriguez, who witnessed the poisoning. You will hear from Dr. Michael Harrison, who confirmed the presence of lethal cyanide. You will see text messages between the defendants planning this murder. You will see Sarah Chen's computer searches for untraceable poisons. Walsh's voice grew harder. And when you've seen all the evidence, I am confident you will find both defendants guilty of every charge. Because the evidence doesn't lie. And in this case, the evidence is overwhelming. She returned to her seat. Sarah's defense attorney stood for his opening statement, but he looked like a man facing an impossible task. Ladies and gentlemen, my client made a terrible mistake. She acknowledges that. But attempted murder requires intent to kill. We will show that Sarah Chen never actually intended for David to drink that tea. That this was a cry for help. A desperate attempt to get attention in a loveless marriage. Even the jury looked skeptical. It was a weak defense, and everyone knew it. The prosecution began presenting its case. First up was Maya. She walked to the witness stand with her head held high. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Catherine Walsh approached with an encouraging smile. Miss Rodriguez, please tell the court how you came to work for David Chen. Maya began her testimony, speaking clearly and honestly. She described coming to Los Angeles to help pay for her mother's cancer treatment, finding the job posting, being hired by David, working in the mansion for 3 months. And during that time, did you notice anything unusual about Mrs. Chen's behavior? Yes, ma'am, Maya said. A man named Ryan Parker started visiting the house almost every day after Mr. Chen left for work. Mrs. Chen introduced him as her cousin, but they didn't act like cousins. How did they act? Like people in love. They would hold hands when they thought no one was watching. They would laugh together and whisper. Sometimes they would lock themselves in rooms for hours. Walsh nodded. And did you ever overhear any concerning conversations? Maya took a deep breath. This was the hard part. Yes. One day I was cleaning near the study when I heard them talking. Mrs. Chen said something about needing a plan where Mr. Chen was out of the picture, and where all his wealth would become hers. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Did you report what you heard? Maya's voice grew quieter. No, ma'am. I was afraid. I needed the job to pay for my mother's medicine. I thought if I spoke up and I was wrong, I'd be fired. And if my mother couldn't get her treatments. She didn't finish the sentence. Everyone understood. But you did eventually speak up, Walsh said gently. Tell us about the day you witnessed Mrs. Chen poison the tea. Maya described everything in detail. Watching Sarah make the tea, seeing her pull out the small bottle, watching the white powder pour into David's cup, seeing Sarah stir it until it dissolved. And what did you do when you saw this? I followed her upstairs. When she was about to give the poisoned tea to Mr. Chen, I ran into the room and screamed at him not to drink it. Why did you do that, Miss Rodriguez? You knew you might lose your job. You knew you might lose the income your mother desperately needed. Why risk everything? Maya's eyes filled with tears. Because my mother always taught me that silence in the face of evil makes you part of that evil. I couldn't stay silent and let Mr. Chen die. No job is worth a man's life. No amount of money is worth becoming part of a murder. Her words hung in the air. Several jurors wiped their eyes. No further questions, Your Honor, Walsh said softly. The defense attorney stood for cross-examination, but there was little he could do. Maya's testimony was clear, consistent, and obviously truthful. Miss Rodriguez, isn't it possible you misunderstood what you saw? That perhaps Mrs. Chen was adding sugar or sweetener to the tea. "No, sir," Maya said firmly. She took a small glass bottle from her purse and poured white powder from it. Then she hid the bottle back in her purse. If it was sugar, why would she hide it? The defense attorney had no good answer. He sat down quickly. Next, Dr. Harrison took the stand. He testified about testing the tea and the bottle, confirming the presence of potassium cyanide. In your medical opinion, Dr. Harrison, what would have happened if Mr. Chen had consumed that entire cup of tea? He would have died within 1 to 2 hours. The dose was absolutely lethal. First severe gastrointestinal distress, then cardiac arrhythmia, then respiratory failure, then death. To anyone who didn't know about the poison, it would have appeared to be a massive heart attack. The prosecution then presented the text messages between Sarah and Ryan. The jury read them on screens, their faces showing increasing disgust. Sarah to Ryan, "I've found it. The perfect solution. No taste, no smell. He'll never know." Ryan to Sarah, "Are you sure about this? There's no going back." Sarah to Ryan, "I'm sure. I'm tired of pretending. Soon we'll have everything." Ryan to Sarah, "I love you. We'll finally be together." Sarah to Ryan, "And we'll be rich. Very, very rich." The messages went on and on, a digital record of conspiracy to commit murder. The defense had no way to dispute them. They were right there in black and white. The prosecution also presented Sarah's computer search history. Untraceable poisons, how to fake a heart attack, poisons that don't show up in autopsies, where to buy cyanide, how long does cyanide take to kill. The evidence was damning, overwhelming, irrefutable. The defense tried to argue that Sarah had never actually given David the tea, so technically no attempt had been made. But Judge Thompson shut that down immediately. "Counselor, she prepared poisoned tea with the intent to serve it to the victim. She brought it to his bedroom. She was seconds away from completing the act. That is attempt." Motion denied. The trial lasted 4 days. The prosecution's case was airtight. The defense had nothing but weak excuses and desperate arguments. When it came time for closing arguments, Catherine Walsh stood before the jury one final time. "Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard the evidence. You've seen the text messages. You've heard Maya Rodriguez's eyewitness testimony. You've seen the cyanide. You've heard Dr. Harrison confirm that David Chen would be dead if he'd drunk that tea." She looked each juror in the eye. Sarah Chan and Ryan Parker planned a murder. They obtained poison. They conspired to kill an innocent man for money. They almost succeeded. The only reason David Chen is alive today is because a young woman with nothing to gain and everything to lose found the courage to speak the truth. Walsh's voice grew stronger. "Justice demands that you find both defendants guilty. The evidence demands it. Morality demands it. Do what's right. Find them guilty." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, we find both defendants guilty. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find both defendants guilty." Sarah collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Ryan stared straight ahead, his face blank with shock. Judge Thompson set sentencing for 2 weeks later. The sentencing hearing 2 weeks later was just as packed as the trial had been. Media coverage had intensified after the guilty verdict. The story of the billionaire's murderous wife and her lover had captivated the nation. But today wasn't about Sarah and Ryan. Today was about Maya. Before the sentencing began, Judge Thompson had a special announcement. "Before we proceed with sentencing, this court would like to recognize an act of extraordinary courage. Miss Maya Rodriguez, please stand." Maya stood, confused and nervous. David, sitting beside her, gave her an encouraging nod. Judge Thompson smiled warmly, perhaps the first smile anyone had ever seen on his stern face. "Miss Rodriguez, your actions in this case represent the very best of human character. You witnessed a crime in progress and, despite significant personal risk, you chose to speak up. You saved a man's life. Your courage and integrity are an example to us all. He held up an official-looking certificate. It is my honor to present you with the Los Angeles County Civilian Heroism Award. Additionally, the Governor of California has asked me to present you with the Governor's Medal of Valor. The courtroom erupted in applause. Maya stood there, overwhelmed, as court officers brought forward the awards. Cameras flashed. People cheered. Detective Martinez, who had been sitting in the back of the courtroom, stood and began clapping. Soon everyone was on their feet. Lawyers, court staff, journalists, spectators. Everyone except Sarah and Ryan, who sat at the defense table looking miserable. Maya accepted the awards with tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "But I just did what anyone should do." "That's precisely the point, Miss Rodriguez," Judge Thompson said. "Most people wouldn't have done what you did. That's what makes you exceptional." After the applause died down and everyone sat again, Judge Thompson's expression turned severe as he looked at the defendants. "Sarah Chan and Ryan Parker, please stand." They stood, both looking significantly worse than they had during the trial. Sarah's designer clothes had been replaced with a prison jumpsuit. Her carefully styled hair was pulled back simply. The glamorous socialite was gone, replaced by a convicted felon. Ryan looked equally diminished. The confident man who'd driven a Porsche to his lover's mansion now stood hunched and defeated. "I have reviewed the evidence in this case extensively," Judge Thompson began. "I have read the pre-sentencing reports. I have considered all factors. And I must say, I have rarely seen a case of such cold, calculated evil." His voice grew harder. "Mrs. Chen, you had everything. A husband who loved you. Unlimited wealth. Every comfort imaginable. And yet greed consumed you so completely that you decided to murder the man who gave you everything. You researched poisons. You planned his death. You obtained cyanide. You put it in his tea and were seconds away from watching him drink it." Judge Thompson paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "The only reason you didn't succeed is because of Miss Rodriguez's courage. But make no mistake, you are guilty of attempted murder. You are a murderer who simply failed to complete the act." He turned to Ryan. "Mr. Parker, you were equally complicit. You conspired with Mrs. Chen. You encouraged her. The text messages show you were a willing and eager participant in this plot. You may not have held the poison, but you are just as guilty." Judge Thompson looked at his notes, then back at the defendants. "For the crime of attempted murder in the first degree, I sentence you both to 25 years in state prison. For conspiracy to commit murder, an additional 10 years, to be served consecutively. For possession of illegal substances with intent to harm, an additional 5 years. He brought his gavel down hard. Total sentence: 40 years in state prison for each defendant. You will be eligible for parole after serving a minimum of 30 years. This court is adjourned." Sarah collapsed, wailing. Ryan's face went white as a sheet. 40 years. They would both be elderly if they ever got out. The bailiffs led them away. Sarah looked back at David one last time, her face a mask of despair. But David showed no emotion. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, Maya was immediately surrounded by reporters. "Miss Rodriguez, how do you feel about the sentence? What are your plans now? Will you accept any of the movie offers?" David's security team quickly formed a barrier around Maya, protecting her from the crush. James Morrison stepped forward as spokesman. "Miss Rodriguez is grateful for the recognition she's received. She's happy that justice has been served. She asks for privacy as she moves forward with her life. No further questions." "Thank you." They got Maya into David's car quickly. As they drove away from the courthouse, Maya finally allowed herself to relax. 40 years, she said quietly. "I can't believe it's really over." "It's over," David confirmed. They're going to prison for a very long time. You're safe. I'm safe. Justice has been done. Maya looked out the window at Los Angeles passing by. This city had terrified her when she first arrived. So big, so overwhelming, so different from her small town in New Mexico. She'd come here desperate and afraid, sleeping under a bridge, looking for any work to save her mother. Now, just months later, everything had changed. Her mother was in remission. She'd saved a man's life. She'd been given awards and recognition. She'd become, in her own quiet way, famous. Mr. Chen, Maya said. I've been thinking. My mother is doing better now. The cancer is in remission. She doesn't need the constant care anymore. David looked concerned. Are you leaving? Because Maya, I told you, you can stay as long as you want. Your job is secure. Your salary. I'm not leaving, Maya said quickly. At least, not permanently. But I want to go home to New Mexico for a while. I want to spend time with my mother. I want to see my village again. I've been gone for months, and I miss home. David smiled with understanding. Of course. Take all the time you need. A month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever you need. Your job will be waiting whenever you want to come back. He paused. Actually, I have a better idea. Let me buy you a house in San Miguel. A nice house where your mother can live comfortably. With a reliable car. And let me set up a trust fund for your mother's future medical care, just in case the cancer ever returns. She'll never have to worry about money again. Maya's eyes widened. Mr. Chen, that's too much. It's not enough, David said firmly. Maya, you saved my life. That's not a debt that can be repaid with money. But money is what I have, and I want to use it to make sure you and your mother are taken care of forever. He pulled out his phone and showed her pictures of houses in New Mexico that his assistant had already researched. Pick one. Any one. It's yours. Maya scrolled through the photos, crying. There were beautiful houses, not mansions, but comfortable homes with land and views of the desert. Houses where her mother could live in peace and dignity. This one, Maya said, pointing to a modest house with a porch and a garden. It looks like home. Done, David said. I'll have the papers drawn up today. It'll be in your mother's name by the end of the week. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the Los Angeles airport, preparing to board a flight to Albuquerque. David had insisted on first-class tickets and had sent her home with gifts for her family. Clothes, electronics, things they'd never been able to afford. Thank you, Mr. Chen, Maya said, hugging him. For everything. You changed my life. David hugged her back. You saved my life, Maya. That's a gift I can never repay. Go home. Be with your mother. Enjoy your new house. And remember, whenever you're ready to come back to Los Angeles, your job is waiting. But if you decide you want to stay in New Mexico, I understand. You've earned the right to live however you choose. Maya boarded the plane with tears in her eyes. As it took off and Los Angeles disappeared below her, she thought about how much had changed since she'd first arrived in this city. She'd come with nothing but hope and determination. She'd faced fear, danger, and impossible choices. She'd stood up against evil when staying silent would have been easier. And now she was going home a hero. Back in San Miguel, her mother was waiting at the airport. Maria Rodriguez looked healthier than she had in years. The cancer treatments had worked. She had gained weight, her color was good, her eyes were bright. When Maya emerged from the gate, Maria ran forward and embraced her daughter, both of them crying. Mija, my brave, brave daughter. I'm so proud of you. So proud. I did what you taught me, Mama. I did what was right. Yes, you did. And look what came from doing the right thing. Blessings beyond measure. They drove to the new house, Maya's gift to her mother. Maria cried when she saw it. A real house, with solid walls and electricity and running water. After a lifetime of poverty, she finally had a home. The whole village came to welcome Maya home. They'd seen her on the news. Their own Maya Rodriguez, the girl who used to fetch water from the well, had saved a billionaire's life. She was a hero. But Maya didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who'd simply done what needed to be done. Someone who'd listened to her conscience and her mother's teachings. That night, sitting on the porch of the new house with her mother, watching the New Mexico sunset paint the sky orange and pink, Maya felt at peace. "Will you go back to Los Angeles?" Maria asked. Maya thought about it. "Maybe. Mr. Chen is a good man. He's been kind to me. But not yet. For now, I want to be here with you, Mama. I want to help in the village. I want to live simply again, at least for a while." Maria squeezed her daughter's hand. "Whatever you choose, Mija, I'm proud of you. You proved that one person can make a difference. That courage matters. That doing the right thing, even when it's hard, is always worth it." Maya smiled. "You taught me that, Mama. Then I did something right in raising you." They sat together in comfortable silence as night fell over San Miguel, two women who had survived poverty, illness, and danger, and had come through it stronger together. 6 months had passed since the trial. David Chen sat in his mansion, now much quieter without Sarah's presence, and reflected on how much his life had changed. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Sarah was in state prison, serving her 40-year sentence. According to reports from David's lawyer, she was not adjusting well to prison life. The woman who'd once lived in luxury now shared a cell with 3 other inmates and worked in the prison laundry for pennies a day. David felt no satisfaction in her suffering. He just felt empty. 10 years of his life had been built on a foundation of lies. The woman he'd loved had never really existed. It had all been an illusion, a performance for his money. The betrayal had left deep scars. He found it hard to trust anyone now. He questioned people's motives constantly. Were they interested in him, or his money? Did they care about David the person, or David the billionaire? He'd thrown himself into work, spending 14-hour days at his tech companies. But work felt hollow now. Making more money, closing more deals. What was the point? He had billions and had almost been murdered for it. James Morrison had noticed David's depression. "You need to get out more," the lawyer told him during one of their meetings. "See friends. Go on dates. Don't let Sarah's betrayal destroy your life. That would mean she wins." But David wasn't interested in dating. The thought of opening his heart to someone else, of being vulnerable again, terrified him. One evening, David received a video call from Maya. She was still in New Mexico, living with her mother. He answered immediately, happy to see her friendly face. "Miss Maya. How are you? How's your mother?" Maya's face filled the screen, smiling warmly. "We're good, Mr. Chen. Mama is doing really well. The doctors say the cancer hasn't come back. And we love the house. It's everything we ever dreamed of." "I'm so glad," David said sincerely. "You both deserve every happiness." Maya's expression grew more serious. "Mr. Chen, I called because I'm worried about you. I've been reading articles about you online. They say you're not going out anymore. That you've become a recluse. That you only work and never socialize." David felt embarrassed that his isolation was so publicly visible. "I'm fine, Maya. Just adjusting." "No, you're not fine," Maya said gently but firmly. "Mr. Chen, what Sarah did was terrible. What she and Ryan did was evil. But you can't let their evil poison your whole life. That would mean they destroyed you after all, even if they didn't kill you." David was quiet. Maya continued. "My mother always says that when bad things happen, we have 2 choices. We can let the bad things break us, or we can let them build us into stronger people. You're a good man, Mr. Chen. Don't let Sarah's betrayal turn you into a bitter, lonely person. That's not who you are." Her words struck deep. She was right. He was letting Sarah win by withdrawing from life. What do you suggest? David asked. Start small, Maya said. Have dinner with friends. Go to that charity gala your assistant has been asking you about. Say yes when people invite you places. And Mr. Chen? Think about using your money to help people. Real people, like you helped my mother and me. That's where real happiness comes from, not from expensive things, but from making a difference. After the call ended, David sat thinking about Maya's advice. She was wise beyond her years, that young woman from San Miguel. The next day, David called his assistant. Sarah, I want to start a foundation. The Maya Rodriguez Foundation for Medical Assistance. I want to help families who can't afford medical treatment for their loved ones. Set it up. Budget, $10 million to start. His assistant was thrilled. That's wonderful, Mr. Chen. I'll get started on it right away. David also started saying yes to social invitations. He attended a charity gala for children's education. He had dinner with old friends he'd been avoiding. He went to a tech conference and actually enjoyed talking with other entrepreneurs. Slowly, carefully, he started rebuilding his life. One evening, at a fundraiser for cancer research, David was introduced to a woman named Jennifer Kim. She was a doctor, a cancer researcher working to develop more affordable treatments. She was intelligent, kind, and passionate about her work. More importantly, she had no idea who David Chen was. She'd grown up in South Korea and had only moved to Los Angeles 2 years ago. She didn't follow business news or social media. When they were introduced, she simply saw him as another donor at the fundraiser. So what do you do? Jennifer asked conversationally. David hesitated, then decided to be honest. I run a tech company. Several, actually. That sounds interesting, Jennifer said. I'm useless with technology. I can barely operate my smartphone. She laughed at herself. But I'm good at other things. I'm trying to develop cancer treatments that are affordable for everyone, not just wealthy people. They talked for an hour, and David found himself genuinely enjoying the conversation. Jennifer was brilliant and funny and completely unpretentious. She cared about helping people, not about impressing anyone. When the evening ended, David worked up the courage to ask, "Would you like to have coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your research." Jennifer smiled. I'd like that. How about Tuesday afternoon? There's a cafe near my lab. David's heart lightened. This was just coffee, just two people getting to know each other. But it felt like a step forward, like maybe he could trust again someday. Over the following months, David and Jennifer became friends. They met for coffee weekly, then started having dinner together. Jennifer eventually learned about David's wealth. It was impossible to hide given his public profile, but it didn't change how she treated him. Money doesn't impress me, she told him frankly. My parents were wealthy in Korea, but they were miserable. Money doesn't create happiness. Character does. Kindness does. How you treat people does. David appreciated her perspective. With Jennifer, he felt like he could be himself. Not David Chen the billionaire, but just David. He told her about Sarah, about the attempted murder, about how the betrayal had affected him. Jennifer listened without judgment. I understand why you're cautious, she said. But David, not everyone is like Sarah. Most people are basically good. Yes, there are some who will use you. But there are many more who will value you for who you are. She paused. Take me, for example. I'm not interested in your money. I make a good salary as a doctor. I'm comfortable. What I value is your kindness, your intelligence, your humor. The fact that you started a foundation to help families afford medical care, that tells me who you really are. Gradually, David's walls came down. He learned to trust again, slowly and carefully. He and Jennifer grew closer, and after a year, they started dating officially. David also stayed in close contact with Maya. She had decided to remain in New Mexico permanently. She'd enrolled in online college courses and was studying to become a nurse, wanting to help people in her community the way the medical staff had helped her mother. "I've found my purpose," Maya told David during one of their video calls. "I want to give back. I want to help other families like mine, families who are struggling to afford medical care. Your foundation has inspired me, Mr. Chen." "You inspired the foundation, Maya," David replied warmly. "None of this would have happened without you." David visited Maya and her mother several times in New Mexico. He brought Jennifer along on one trip. The two women hit it off immediately, bonding over their passion for healthcare and helping others. Maria Rodriguez hugged David tightly during that visit. "Thank you for everything you've done for my daughter and for me. You're a good man with a good heart. I pray God blesses you with all the happiness you deserve." "Your daughter saved my life, Mrs. Rodriguez. I'm the one who should be thanking you for raising such an extraordinary young woman." 2 years after the trial, David and Jennifer got engaged. The wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family. Maya flew in from New Mexico to attend, and David insisted she sit in the family section. During the reception, David gave a speech that brought tears to everyone's eyes. 2 years ago, I almost died. Not from an accident or an illness, but from betrayal by someone I trusted completely. That experience could have destroyed me. It could have made me bitter and closed off forever." He looked at Jennifer, then at Maya. "But I learned something important. Yes, there are people in this world who will betray you. People who care only about money and themselves. But there are also people of incredible goodness and courage. People like Maya Rodriguez, who risked everything to do what was right. People like Jennifer, who values character over wealth." He raised his glass. "So tonight I want to thank Maya for saving my life. And I want to thank Jennifer for helping me rebuild it. Here's to second chances, to courage, and to love that's real." Everyone raised their glasses, and Maya wiped tears from her eyes. After the wedding, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. David and Jennifer bought a smaller house in Pasadena, still nice, but not a mansion. "I don't want to live in a place that requires staff to maintain," Jennifer said. "I want a home, not a museum." David sold the Hollywood Hills mansion. Too many bad memories lived in those walls. Too many reminders of betrayal. The Maya Rodriguez Foundation grew and thrived, helping hundreds of families afford medical treatment. David and Jennifer both served on the board, and Maya joined them via video conference from New Mexico. David had learned valuable lessons from his experience. Trust must be earned, not freely given. Character matters more than appearance. And sometimes the people we least expect, like a humble housekeeper from a small town, turn out to be the heroes we need most. 5 years had passed since that terrifying day when Maya screamed and saved David Chen's life. Those 5 years had brought changes no one could have predicted. Maya Rodriguez, now 28 years old, stood in her nursing scrubs at the San Miguel Community Health Center, a medical clinic that served her village and the surrounding area. She'd graduated with her nursing degree 2 years ago and had immediately returned home to serve her community. But this wasn't just any clinic. Above the door hung a sign, the Maria Rodriguez Memorial Health Center, funded by the Maya Rodriguez Foundation. Maya's mother had passed away peacefully 8 months ago. The cancer had returned, and this time the treatments couldn't stop it. But Maria had lived her final years in comfort and dignity, in the house David had bought, surrounded by family and love. Before she died, Maria had told Maya, "I'm ready, Mija. I've seen you become the woman I always knew you could be. I've lived to see my grandchildren. I've had more happiness in these last few years than in all my life before. I'm ready to rest." Maya had been devastated by her mother's death, but also grateful. Grateful for the extra years they'd had together. Grateful that her mother hadn't died when Maya first came to Los Angeles, desperate and afraid. Grateful that she'd been able to give her mother a peaceful, comfortable end. David had flown to New Mexico for the funeral, bringing Jennifer and their 1-year-old daughter, Sophia. The entire village had turned out to honor Maria Rodriguez, the woman who'd raised a hero. After Maria's death, David had approached Maya with a proposal. Let me build a medical clinic in San Miguel in your mother's name. A place where people can get affordable health care. We'll staff it with doctors and nurses, provide free or low-cost treatment, and make sure no one in your region has to suffer because they can't afford medical care. Maya had cried and said yes. The clinic had opened 4 months ago, and it was already serving hundreds of patients every month. Now Maya worked at the clinic 3 days a week, providing care to her neighbors. The rest of the week she spent managing the Maya Rodriguez Foundation, which had grown far beyond its original scope. The foundation now had branches in 10 states, helping thousands of families afford medical treatment. Maya oversaw everything via video conferences and occasional trips to Los Angeles, but she lived in San Miguel, in the house her mother had loved. She'd gotten married 2 years ago to Carlos, a teacher at the local school. They had a baby daughter named Maria, after Maya's mother. Life was simple, happy, and meaningful. David and Jennifer visited at least twice a year. Their friendship had remained strong despite the distance. Jennifer was now leading a research team that had developed a breakthrough in affordable cancer treatment, a therapy that cost 1/10 of traditional treatments and was twice as effective. Your mother's struggle inspired this research, Jennifer told Maya during one visit. I kept thinking about families like yours, who couldn't afford treatment. That's what drove me to find a better way. The treatment was now being tested in clinical trials, with stunning results. If approved, it would save countless lives and save families from financial ruin. David's life had transformed as well. He'd sold 2 of his tech companies and shifted his focus to philanthropy. The Chen Family Foundation now funded medical research, education initiatives, and poverty relief programs around the world. I spent the first half of my life accumulating wealth, David said during a podcast interview. I'm spending the second half giving it away to make a real difference. That's what brings me joy now, not another $1 million, but another family that doesn't have to choose between medical treatment and bankruptcy. The interviewer asked about the attempted murder, and David's response was thoughtful. That experience changed me fundamentally. It showed me that the things I thought mattered, money, status, luxury, were actually pretty meaningless. What matters is how you treat people. What matters is having people in your life who value you for who you are, not what you have. What matters is using your resources to help others. He smiled. A brave young woman risked everything to save my life. I've tried to honor that sacrifice by living a life worth saving. By being the kind of person who deserves the second chance she gave me. Sarah Chan and Ryan Parker remained in prison. Sarah had tried to appeal her conviction multiple times, but every appeal was denied. The evidence was too overwhelming, the crime too clear. According to reports, Sarah had become a model prisoner, teaching other inmates to read and working in the prison library. Perhaps prison had finally taught her humility and remorse. Perhaps she'd finally learned that some things mattered more than money. Ryan had taken a different path, becoming angry and bitter. He blamed Sarah for everything, claiming he'd been manipulated. No one believed him. The text messages told a different story, a story of 2 people equally guilty, equally evil. They would both be in prison until they were elderly. Their chance at life and freedom was gone, destroyed by their own greed. On the 5th anniversary of Maya saving David's life, David organized a special event. He flew Maya, Carlos, and little Maria to Los Angeles for a ceremony at City Hall. The mayor of Los Angeles stood at a podium in front of a large crowd. Media cameras recorded everything. Dignitaries filled the front rows. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor began, 5 years ago, a young woman displayed extraordinary courage. Maya Rodriguez, a housekeeper who'd come to Los Angeles to help her sick mother, witnessed a crime in progress. She could have stayed silent. Staying silent would have protected her job and income. But she chose to speak up, to risk everything, to do what was right. The mayor gestured to Maya, who stood on the stage looking uncomfortable with all the attention. Because of her courage, David Chen's life was saved. And that saved life has gone on to help thousands of others through the Chen Family Foundation and the Maya Rodriguez Foundation. The mayor unveiled a plaque that would be installed in City Hall. It read, "The Maya Rodriguez Courage Award, established to honor ordinary people who display extraordinary courage in the face of danger. Given annually to individuals who risk their own welfare to help others." "Miss Rodriguez," the mayor said, "you are the first recipient of the award that bears your name. Your courage saved a life and inspired a movement of giving and service. Los Angeles is proud to call you one of our heroes." The crowd stood and applauded. Maya wiped tears from her eyes. Carlos squeezed her hand. Little Maria, confused by all the noise, giggled and clapped her hands too. After the ceremony, David and Maya stood together on the steps of City Hall, looking out at the city where their lives had intersected 5 years ago. "Do you ever regret it?" David asked. "Those few seconds when you had to choose between your safety and my life? Do you ever wish you'd made a different choice?" Maya shook her head firmly. "Never. Not for 1 second. Mr. Chen, my mother taught me that we're defined by the choices we make when no one's watching. When it's hard. When it costs us something. That day, I had to choose between money and morality. Between safety and doing right. I chose right, and I'd choose it again every time." She smiled. "Besides, look at everything that came from that choice. My mother got treatment and lived her final years in peace. I got an education. I'm a nurse helping my community. You survived and have helped thousands of families. Jennifer developed breakthrough cancer treatments. All of this happened because I screamed at you not to drink that tea." "One voice can change everything," David said softly. "One voice," Maya agreed. "One choice. One moment of courage." They stood in comfortable silence, two people from completely different worlds whose lives had become forever intertwined. A billionaire tech mogul and a small-town nurse. A man who'd nearly been murdered by his wife and the woman who'd saved him. In the end, their story wasn't about wealth or poverty, privilege or struggle. It was about character. About courage. About choosing right over easy. It was about a young woman who'd listened to her mother's wisdom. Silence in the face of evil makes you part of that evil. Maya had refused to be silent. She had screamed when screaming mattered most. And that scream had echoed across 5 years, creating ripples of good that continued to spread. As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maya thought about her mother. About the lessons Maria had taught her. About the courage that had been passed from mother to daughter. "Mama," Maya whispered to the wind, "I did what you taught me. I did what was right. And look at all the good that came from it. I hope I've made you proud." Somewhere, somehow, Maya felt certain her mother was smiling. The story that had begun with poisoned tea and desperate fear had ended with healing, growth, and redemption. Not for Sarah and Ryan, who'd chosen evil, they'd gotten the justice they deserved. But for David, who'd survived and rebuilt his life around meaning instead of money. And for Maya, who'd proven that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they listen to their conscience and find the courage to act. One scream. One choice. One moment that changed everything. That's all it takes to be a hero. The end. Thank you so much for following this incredible journey. If this story moved you, please like and share this video so more people can learn from Maya's courage. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories that will change how you see the world. What did you learn from this story? Drop a comment below and let me know. Your engagement helps us bring you more content like this. Remember Maya's lesson. Silence in the face of evil makes you part of that evil. Stand up. Speak out. Do what's right, even when it's hard. You never know whose life you might save. Until next time, stay inspired, stay courageous, and always choose to do what's right.